Sveiki sugrįžę po pertraukos. Sveiki.
So welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us here at the Palace of the Grand Youth. Thank you for listening and watching us on lrt.lt and delphi.lt. So we're going to talk right now with the European Commissioner for Defense and Space. We're going to talk with the designated Minister for National Defense of Lithuania. So we'll have a lot of discussion, but first of all, let's check with Mr. Andrius Kubilius, European Commissioner for Defense and Space. Good afternoon. I can hear you very well. Thank you. Mr. Kubilius, we can see you and hear you. We know that you're very busy, that you're short on time. So let's dive right in. How are you doing in terms of your works? In the next 100 days, you have to prepare and draft the European defense strategy. Have you started yet? And what are your works? So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this amazing security conference. Best of wishes to all the ministers designate and acting and their staff. It is a great pleasure to be here and to talk to you and discuss things that truly matter as far as I'm concerned. And you were right in noticing that I have a task based on the mission letter, so-called mission letter, that every commissioner received from Ursula von der Leyen in September. So my first job is to draft the white paper on European defense. We're doing this in conjunction with Maya Kallas. And in the letter, I had a clear task, what is expected from the white paper, and I need to define the measures that the European Union needs to implement in order to prepare for the extreme defense-related events, extreme military contingencies. So this was very bureaucratic jargon, but it is, to put it simply, the European Commission wants to define the measures that would enable the EU to battle against Russia in case of Russia's invasion. German intelligence just recently published a public statement saying that, according to their estimates, Russia might be prepared for an aggression against the EU. And the time frame we're talking about is just a year. And if we were to look at the status quo in the European Union, at our preparedness capabilities, capabilities to deter Russia from aggression, we can remember the most recent report that says that the so-called difference between what we have to have and what we have is huge, so the gap is quite significant. And truly, we need to construct the measures that would allow us to strengthen our preparedness pretty quickly. So we need to expand our defense spending. We need to expand our defense industry. So we need significant amount of funding, but I don't want to go into detail right now here. I just tried to define the measures and what needs to be done. So, Commissioner, let's talk about money. ERP agencies just yesterday said that the European Union needs the big bang. It needs changes in spending to strengthen its defense against the background of this threat. In the past 10 years, in the next 10 years, we need 10 billion euro. euros. So is there a political will, first of all, in your opinion, to increase that spending? Is there political will for that big bank? And then we'll talk about sources of funding. There is the political will to defend. So we need to find out an answer from the European Union member states, and Lithuania has a role to play. So together with the Nordic companies and the Baltic countries, we feel that threat a lot more than other EU member states. As far as I'm concerned, that threat, understanding of that threat is more widespread now because we now understand that there are threats and we need to prepare to defend against those threats. And Commission President talks about this in the mission letters we've, as commissioners, received. So the Commission, European Union Commission, understands these threats very well. And if you were to listen to the German intelligence services, we get the understanding that the German government, the German policy makers understand that these threats exist. And hopefully, once we have identified the threats, we can identify what's missing, and then we can move forward towards that big bang with full understanding that in order to deter Russia, it's not enough to improve defense and strengthen defense industry. It is important to ensure that we have enough battle tanks, enough other ammunition and equipment as the NATO guidelines suggest, and the NATO capability building goals suggest. You've mentioned the German economy, which is very fluid. The French political situation is uncertain. Then we have Hungary, potentially Romania joining skepticism. And are there any mechanism to circumvent opposition from these countries when it comes to the matter of increasing military or defense spending? So what are the mechanisms to combat their opposition? You have community methods. If there is no agreement on community methods, because community methods and mechanisms require unanimous consensus. So you need to find, if that's not an option, you need to find bilateral understandings or multilateral understandings between the countries who understand that threat. We can recall history here and compare the European situation now and situation of Europe in 1930s, and Churchill, who was a lone soldier in a way, and he encouraged the UK and other countries to prepare for potential war with Hitler, because he saw that Hitler was preparing for war, was arming Germany. Whereas at that time, there was the widespread sentiment among other European countries to seek settlement, to seek peace with Hitler. So they were preparing to agree to find understanding with Hitler rather than fight the war. So we need to avoid these mistakes in the future. I cannot comment on other EU member states, what they're thinking, what their understanding of the current threats are. But I can repeat myself that the European Union Commission President and the commissioners newly appointed understand fully what kind of threats we face and what kind of decisions are needed in the near future. Let's talk about financing sources. We need a lot more than we spend right now on defense. So In your opinion, where do we get that money that we need? What the primary source of financing should be when it comes to defense capabilities? So we cannot expect or wait for miracles. Key primary source of funding is obviously our taxpayers. So are they willing to spend that money? We're talking about three directions of financing that need to be explored. Multi-annual European Union budget that will be approved during the Lithuanian presidency, and we hopefully will see more spending on defense in that budget, because you've rightly noticed that the EU budget now allocates 10 billion euros on defense, but that budget will come into play and will be applied starting 2028. So looking at the potential calendar, we cannot wait until 2028. There is still need for actions. Ursula von der Leyen and I just had a discussion about the opportunities, the possibilities to find that funding. We were talking about 500 billion euros over a period of 10 years so that we can implement defense-related projects that are important. Former Italian Prime Minister Draghi says the same. Approximately 500 billion is needed to strengthen our defense industry. When it comes to sources of financing, again, there are no miracle sources. In theory, we can look into ways of redistributing money that we spend on current programs. For example, we can take a package and funding from the RRF fund, the so-called recovery fund. We need to look into ways to fund defense industry in the regions where there are a lot of gaps, where defense industry is lacking. We can look at what we can achieve from the European stability mechanism, that we still have a remainder of funds that can be used on the defense. So you're doing exactly that. Have you started changing the rules how to redistribute that funding? We'll be discussing these opportunities deeper in the white paper, because we have also defense bonds. We can borrow just like we did during the pandemic. So we can borrow as the EU on financial markets globally. But there are EU member states that oppose this idea, because these loans would have to be repaid from the European Union budget, and that budget is very limited. But I encourage to see and to adopt the same approach as Markus Rutte from the new Secretary General of NATO, so that to increase defense spending nationally from national GDP, and additionally allocate around 200 million on defense, national defense. That would allow us to make progress on national level, which eventually will contribute to the preparedness on the EU level, because we in total need around 500 billion euros. So you don't see the opportunities for EU debt common debt. So I want to because of the poor connection, I want to clear this definition with you. Are we talking about common EU debt? When it comes to defense bonds, and when this idea started circulating a lot of the time, people remember a loan of 800 billion that was taken on behalf of the EU. That loan was taken based on the premise and promise that other sources of funding will be found to repay that loan. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, and pretty soon, if we were to continue on the same path, the European Union budget will be emptied. So that is exactly what I want to avoid. I am thinking about a loan that wouldn't be tied to the European Union budget. Hopefully, the way forward is to use part of the national budgets to get this loan, in particular in this sensitive time, and given the sensitivity of this idea of defense bonds. You're also a commissioner for space, so we have a question from the audience. How important the space domain dimension is in the context of Ukrainian war, how relevant this area is for Lithuania and the EU as a whole. We have to remember that the European Union has several very important space systems developed, systems used widely in the civil life and in defense, for defense purposes. So we have Galileo system that allows for geolocation, allows the geolocation service, a GPS service. So we use that for our cars to navigate, but that service can be used for other purposes as well. It can be used for defense and military purposes. It can be used in our combat vehicles. So that system is a leading system globally. It provides 3 times more precise positioning compared to the American system. We also have the Copernicus system that is designed to monitor the Earth. It is widely used for civil purposes, to monitor air pollution, for example, to monitor natural disasters, but that system and its use can be expanded. It can be used to track movement of, for example, military forces, and that system is relevant. And again, it's a leading system in the world for what it does. And these systems can be used for intelligence, for defense purposes. And just recently, we're going to sign an important and relevant, significant contract for the IRIS system, so that Europe has a similar system to what Elon Musk has. So the secure satellite system. So he has the Starlink system. So hopefully Europe will have a similar system in the near future, hopefully. In terms of quality, it will be equivalent to Starlink or even better. I'm not able to tell you right now how much of the data, how much of these systems are used by Ukraine and for military purposes in Ukraine, but the space opportunities are endless. And now it's the last question from the audience. How do you value or see the status quo of the European defense industry? Because Russia is producing more weaponry and ammunition compared to Europe. So if we are preparing to deter Russia or fight against its aggression, what kind of defense industry we have.
Well, I can recall and quote Mario Draghi, where he very clearly said that military industry or defense industry in Europe is struggling because we have many states who do nothing. We have many barriers. That's why this industry cannot be developed. Unfortunately, we are having some technical problems. We cannot fully hear the Commissioner's words. So those problems are known, including the threatening figures that you mentioned, that Russia manages to produce as many weapons over 6 months as Germany has in its stock, or just like NATO Secretary General say, in over 6 months, Russia can produce as many weapons as all the EU can produce over a year. So definitely, this is a test to our preparedness to defend ourselves, and we have to radically change the situation. This is something that I refer to the sequence or the logic of actions of the Big Bang, because NATO is developing new defense plans based on the experience in Ukraine, and NATO will also approve new requirements. I'm sorry, we cannot fully hear everything what the Commissioner says. And we want to turn those requirements into a European plan for our defense industry by raising a question: can those weapons that we need be produced over the coming 4 years, with the fact, given that Europe will find sufficient funding for that? So we are trying to address this situation by taking certain steps, and with the hope that we will be able to persuade member states to contribute to this. I think we are having more severe technical problems. We are losing you in technical terms, but we also ran out of time, and I still have many questions for you. But I believe that we'll have many more opportunities to talk to you. So best of luck in all of your endeavors. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for connecting. So, Commissioner for Space and Defense, Mr. Kubilius, thank you very much. I hope that space will give better connection very soon, and we will be able to communicate successfully. Let's hope so. Let's hope so.